Hello and welcome back to Over the Line Football Podcast episode 4. And today we're going to be talking about Manchester City actually losing a game, getting a Liverpool fan's insight into their troubles at the moment, and talking, is Gareth Bale really back?
First of all, I want to give a big shout out to Football Shirts 101 on Twitter and on Depot. It's where I bought this wonderful St. Pauli shirt from. I was looking for a St. Pauli shirt for ages. Obviously, they are an interesting team in general, I'll say that. Reasonable prices as well as fast delivery, so please go check him out.
First of all, we're going to be discussing the Manchester derby.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to, don't we? Nah, I'm joking. But it was the big game of the weekend, and it probably didn't go as expected with United winning it by 2-0. Man City finally lost a Premier League game. What's that about?
I was just shocked in general, really. I think I didn't see it happen. I said to my dad at the start of the game, it was easy 5-0 for Man City this, and
5-0? Wow, okay.
Well, considering the troubles Man United had against the big six teams and in general, and Bruno Fernandes, and Bruno Fernandes scores a penalty in 2 minutes, that basically wipes that away, doesn't it? So
yeah.
From the look of the game, the Man United had the better chances, but Man City, look, they score every time. I just think shoot on target, so it goes a white away over and stuff like that. Man United had more shots than target when Man City had more shots. So, but we'll talk about the game more anyway, rather than that. So, I mean, 3 points for Man United. The top four is looking a lot better now.
Definitely a lot better now. After 3 0-0s in a row, that was important for them to get the win.
Not a bad team to win either, is it, against that kind of calibre? So, I think on the run of play, do you think it was a deserved win?
Yeah, of course it was deserved, but they kind of caught City on an off day, and a lot of the players who've been so essential to how City have played so far this season. You think João Cancelo, Ilkay Gundogan, Kevin De Bruyne was one of the worst performances I've ever seen him put in for City. It was incredibly bad. A lot of them were just god awful, and it's shown that after we conceded that first goal, Cancelo was still trying to dribble the ball out of his own box and nearly conceded to second. So I think United caught a lot of the City players on a bad day, but can take nothing away from United. I think if Solskjaer would have been given a script and been told to write down how would you want the game to go tomorrow, that is how he would have done it. An early goal.
The thing with Solskjaer is every single time he looks like he's being in trouble, he gets to win again, doesn't he?
Yeah,
it's just crazy how he's managed to pull this out of the bag every time. Like I said to you before the game, I said 100% I didn't see Man United winning. Neither the bookies. The bookies, I mean, Sky Bet had Man United 6-1. So that's unbelievable odds. I mean, Man City were good odds of 4-9 as well. Considering all the other teams only play like 1-10. Yeah. So it's both a good game to bet on, really. To be fair.
First for second, wasn't it?
So,
but honestly, on the run of play, getting that early goal was just so perfect for United because for one, they had a lead to protect, and for two, they could just play to their strengths, which is counter attacking. They're brilliant at counter attacking. Although on the second goal, Manchester City kind of laid the so-called blue carpet out for Shaw to run kind of along for the pitch. But apart from that, United had a few other chances as well. It's not like they had 2 chances to score 2 goals. They had a few chances as well. A couple of saves from Ederson, a couple of kind of last-ditch tackles. But you can kind of take nothing away from United because considering the form they were in coming into the game, especially the 0-0 versus Palace, that was dull. There was a real risk that if City got all 3 points that teams below them could really start to catch them. United have got a decent cushion, and that felt like a kind of a big game to win, to keep that cushion. And now, obviously, they'll have a lot more.
Every single team in the top 4 won, didn't they? So Leicester won and so did Chelsea. So
Chelsea, yeah.
It's pretty much the same gap as it was before, which is better than...
and then obviously West Ham won a couple of days later. So there is teams around them winning. So they would have been under a lot of pressure if they'd have lost that game, but winning it gives them so many advantages, a confidence boost more than anything to go into the next couple of games. I know they've got West Ham this weekend, so West Ham it will be a big one for them. Yeah. It's more of a kind of a top 4 battle. Just to kind of get it out of the way, 11 points now, the gap between first and second.
You've won the league. It doesn't matter.
I have not won it.
You just want me to say it.
I've not won it. I've not contributed in any way. If I contribute, I said this to my mum yesterday. If I took part in a Manchester derby, I wouldn't last 5 minutes before being sent off.
Speaking of, obviously, we were talking about Cancelo before. He got subbed off after 60 minutes. It's one of his poorest games.
Yeah, definitely.
And same with De Bruyne as well. Surprised. He's not going to sub De Bruyne off. But then I think the first 5 passes, he didn't find a single player.
I always felt with Cancelo, there's always, as brilliant as is, there are always going to be weaknesses against teams like this, because if they get the upper hand and start to attack a lot more, there's going to be space where he's left, which I think was probably equally surprising why Kyle Walker didn't play. Because if Kyle Walker could have played on the right and Cancelo would have played on the left, it allowed Cancelo a lot more freedom. But he was completely pinned back by Shaw and Rashford on that right side, and he's an okay defender. He's not a brilliant defender. So Rashford kind of had the beating him of him on that side, and when they doubled up with Luke Shaw, the second goal was a bit of a freaky goal, because it was just 9 times out of 10 Cancelo reads the press and just either holds off or wins the ball, but he just read it horribly wrong, and the ball just kind of glided past him with Shaw. And then when Shaw was in that position, although I do think the defenders probably should have done a bit better closing him down, United are so good in them positions in like 4 versus 3s or 5 versus 3s, them sort of situations, especially with a link-up play with Rashford. And Martial, they kind of want to give a kind of shout to Martial, who's been under kind of a lot of scrutiny. He was fantastic.
He was given the man of the match at the end, didn't he? I know he had a good game, but I don't think he got man of the match. I think Luke Shaw.
I think Luke Shaw
should have man of the match. I feel like they give it to Martial because he's been playing so poor recently.
They're desperate for a kind of goal scoring number 9, aren't they? I know Cavani keeps getting injured. I've just actually read just before I started the podcast that he doesn't want to stay after this season. Kind of wants to go and do the whole South American thing of going back to South America and kind of retiring in his country. So I think.
Where's Uruguay?
So I think it highlights the need for a number 9 for United desperately. But Martial stepped up in Cavani's absence and was brilliant, and obviously won the early penalty. The early penalty baffles me, like why you need to make a challenge like that. I understand Pep's thing is if you've lost a ball, you can win it back, but not win it back by going through someone in the second minute in the box.
It's he's a forward as well, and he's not as if he's a centre half tackle. He's making a tackle that he doesn't have to do as a striker.
Through the back as well.
No offence, Martial wasn't even going to shoot him either. There's 3 people blocking Martial off from shooting. 3 lines of defence, and yet Jesus has tripped him over.
So I think both sides are probably in desperate need for a proper number 9.
Could be a future video. What transfers might want to see each club might want to make, for example.
Maybe, but the I don't know with Jesus, his all round play has been really good, and his stats have always been really good. But he's not a killer in front of goal like Sergio Aguero is. And if Sergio Aguero isn't going to make a comeback at any point, and this is going to be his last season, then City are in desperate need, I think, for a killer Erling Haaland type number 9. I say Erling Haaland because that is the type of striker they need. Someone who gets a chance is going to score.
Well, I was saying BT Sport yesterday, like obviously Borussia Dortmund is 6th. He's not going to want to miss out on Champions League football with that record he's got now. Is it 20 goals in 14 games?
Everyone in Europe is going to be after him.
At the end of the day, it's going to be a nice bit.
46 goals in 45 appearances for Borussia Dortmund.
There is also release clause, isn't there, in the summer? 110 million.
No.
Oh.
Release clause is next summer.
That's what I'm saying. Was it
next summer, yeah. So it's 75 million next summer.
So I saw recently there's 110 this summer. I've seen.
Well, that might be what he's valued at this summer. So. Well, if it is, that's a no-brainer, isn't it? Like, but the kind of situation with Haaland, everyone is going to want him in European football. If Borussia Dortmund don't get Champions League, I can see these 2 clubs being in for him, and like United going back in for Jadon Sancho.
Yeah, perhaps.
Because Jadon Sancho isn't going to want to wait around with no Champions League football. Dortmund are having a tough year, but they're progressing in the Champions League. Maybe they win it. You never know. There could be a dark horse. We touched on him just before, but the kind of rise of Luke Shaw continues for United.
Most surprise package, I feel like, of the season. I mean, because in the start of the season, they brought Alex Telles in to replace him and sort it out. And then, I mean, Alex Telles, I still like. He's a very, very good left back. I mean, you see now Porto now. He's playing for obviously full back money for Porto, and now Porto in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. So proves they've done well without him at the end of the day. But I do feel like if you had to pick out anyone to start the season, you wouldn't pick Luke Shaw as your starting fullback. You say he'd be on your get rid list if you're in Man United fan, I reckon. Yeah. And now he's basically made a chance now to possibly start for England in the Euros as well. So been good to see anyway. But I think Luke Shaw. I don't know how he's done so well. I mean, saw a quote when Telles came in. He said it'd be nice to have some competition, which I thought, well, you're an idiot. Telles is going to start above you. He surprised me.
Yeah, he surprises how much kind of competition improves players. But he is massively improved, and I think you put it perfectly. If you have said at the start of the season he's going to be starting left back for the Euros, you would have laughed at him. Obviously not confirmed yet. We've got the World Cup qualifiers coming up, so I imagine Shaw will go with the squad for that. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't, and I imagine he'll play. So whether Southgate sees him in the system he wants to play, because I imagine and I hope that the systems he's playing in these sort of games are preparing him for the Euros in the summer. But the game in general was probably a more important game for Man United, you'd say, to win, because of the Champions League more than City. I mean, City have just been on a 21 winning streak, so losing one game. Although me personally would have liked it to be Wolves in midweek and not Man United this weekend. But I mean, Ollie's done Pep 3 times out of 4 in the league now. I know Pep did him in his first season, but it's like he's kind of kryptonite. Why do you think that is?
I literally have no idea in the slightest what it is. I don't know why.
No,
like I said to you, for some reason every time Ollie's on the verge of being cut, he's makes a Sir Alex type recovery and beats PSG or beats Man City on whatever. He's just crazy how he must have something going on in the change rooms or something before the game. He must have get like some motivational video up on YouTube and get everyone going, everyone pumped up or something, because it's getting ridiculous now how he's just finding a way out.
I feel like I've seen that game the other day, like the 3 or 4 times they've played each other. It was so obvious that each City. I think actually that might be the third 2-0, although one of them was 2-1. But United getting 2 counter-attacking goals and then City trying to push for equalisers or getting goals back into game. I felt like I'd seen that game over and over again. So I don't understand how that's played out. But yeah, Dolly's kind of got the wool over their eyes at this moment in time, which is probably worrying for Pep, but I don't think he's too bothered, to be honest.
Pep out.
But yeah, that's enough on that game. We were going to speak about Liverpool, but we thought it was probably best to get someone who knows a bit more about it than us, because we're
not Liverpool fans.
We're not Liverpool fans. Yeah. And the situation after losing again this weekend to Fulham is baffling. So earlier this week I spoke to Kiefer McDonald from Vavel about Liverpool's troubles. There it is. Right, so obviously, hopefully, Harry from the future, as I'm recording this, has transitioned this in quite nicely. But instead of us waffling on the podcast, we thought we'd actually get a proper Liverpool journo on to talk about Liverpool. Kiefer, thank you very much. It's been a long time coming. Have we ever done anything together before? I don't think we've ever done anything together.
No. So this is good. I'll take that introduction. I'll take that. It's a nice introduction. That I'll take that.
But considering all the talks we've had in the last couple of years, considering City and Liverpool have been kind of neck and neck, when the first couple of bad results came in quite recently, it was just like, all right, okay. But this has kind of turned into a full-blown crisis now, hasn't it?
Yeah, no, it has. I mean, I think you're right. Top at Christmas Day, then we had the West Brom and the Newcastle games between the New Year. Two disappointing draws. You'd think 6 points from them, especially with West Brom being at Anfield. And then the Southampton away defeat kind of that was a bit more concerning. It was a bit like, okay, Southampton were doing all right at the time, so it was maybe a bit easier to take. And then, like you say, each week you thought Liverpool maybe steady the ship, and it was a bit of a blip. But as injuries came thicker and faster, Liverpool have just been in free fall ever since the turn of the year. And obviously we had the wins against West Ham and Tottenham at the end of January, which maybe looked like we were getting some kind of form back, but it just seems that playing at Anfield at the minute, I don't know what it is, considering it's been a fortress for 3 or 4 years now.
It's crazy. I mean, it's obviously quite hard to look past the injuries you've had, really. But is there anything more to it? Is it just when you get these lads back, you're going to be up there again, or is there more to it than you kind of see at the moment?
I think there's more to it. I think the injuries definitely play a factor. I mean, I was on Twitter the other day. Obviously after the Chelsea defeat, I think everyone had their own opinions on the 5th straight home defeat in a row. I mean, I think as soon as you lose both centre halves, obviously you lose Van Dijk in October and Joe Gomez in November. I think as soon as that happens, although Liverpool are top of the league, I think you maybe think, have they got enough to go 25 games without the first choice centre halves? And it leaves you with Joel Matip, who is a fantastic centre half on his day, but can you rely on him to play 25 league games? Absolutely not. So that was probably the first warning sign. And then obviously at the minute now you've got people playing everywhere. Obviously up until recently you had Henderson and Fabinho, the two best midfielders, for us last season. They formed such a good partnership along with Wijnaldum. They're playing centre half, which then affects how the fullbacks play. You've not got cover. Then you've got new midfield trios every week. You've got Thiago, Wijnaldum, Jones, Milner. Everyone being thrown in, and then with a slight drop off in the front three as well. And we know how vital Klopp's system is. I think it's been well documented since he's been in England that he needs the perfect cog in every position. And even if it's the goalkeeper, we've seen with Karius in the past, or if it's he wants a new midfielder or a striker, just that 1% or 2% missing is huge because of what he demands from his team in terms of it's like a pressing machine. And I think that's something that's been highlighted in recent weeks, that the press just hasn't been there. Teams are bypassing the press, skipping by it, and we're just looking absolutely woeful at the minute, and I can't see it changing anytime soon. Like you say,
coming into this season, go on. What was you going to say?
I'll just say, as soon as one of the new lads come back, well, not the new lads, but one Van Dijk and Gomez come back, I mean, it will obviously help. I mean, Van Dijk's a world class centre half, but I don't think it will. I think Liverpool do need to make signings in the summer, freshen things up, because I think as well, obviously City had their kind of off season last year, finishing second, but from the previous years, I think also mental exhaustion plays a huge part. Pep and Klopp are probably the two most demanding managers in world football, so they've made 95 points. Obviously, something me and you spoke about. 95 points seems normal now, which in reality, 3 years ago it wasn't. It was 85 points to win a league title. So I think between now and the end of the season, it's just going to be all eyes on the Champions League. I mean, I'd say a rest in the summer, but you've got the European Championships, so I don't see where any rest is going to come from for these players.
Because coming into this campaign, right, you'd have your three normal centre halves, and then would your fourth be Fabinho, or would it have been Nat Phillips, or how was that going to work?
Well, obviously Lovren would have been fourth choice last year, obviously, but he was sold, and that was kind of as bad or as inconsistent, I think the correct word is to use for Lovren, or as bad as he was. He's a proven Premier League centre half. I'm not sure what he's proving. Yeah, but he's a decent, standard Premier League centre half. So I think as soon as Lovren was sold and Liverpool didn't replace him in a sense, that was maybe a bit alarming. But I think Nat Phillips, it came out that he was meant to be joining Swansea, and he got, I think it was an injury, so he didn't end up joining in the end, or the move broke down. So he was obviously not in the picture. You've got young Reece Williams, who, it's well documented he was playing non-league football last year, so he certainly wasn't in the picture. So I think Liverpool went into the campaign with three centre halves, in their own, maybe Joe Gomez and Matip more so being injury prone. I mean, we've been lucky with Van Dijk since he's been here. He's never really had a long injury layoff.
He's not had anything really, has he, since he's come, Van Dijk. It's all hindsight, isn't it? You can kind of say this about the summer, but like losing 3 long-term injuries in one position is impossible to predict, in it. It's just freaky. Yeah,
I mean, I think I saw a stat the other day that muscle injuries are massively up this season, but in terms of like they're not muscle injuries that we've been suffering. So like you said, they are freak. It's not like we played too much football in too many days. It is literally the fact that like he's done his ACL in a clash with a goalkeeper. Joe Gomez has had that horrid challenge in England training, whatever happened there. And obviously Matip's torn his ligament. So it's not like they've been injuries that you could maybe think, well, if we ease them a bit and we rotated, they were literally all unavoidable, because so it's been a strange one. Like you say, when it rains it pours, doesn't it? And it certainly has this season for Liverpool. So
I think you're right with the burnout thing though, because I saw a graph yesterday about like expected goals, not expected goals, like average goals like per month, and at the start of the season it was like 3.6 per game, and now it's gone down to like 1.3. I think I read it was the other day. So I think the element of burnout is a real kind of, especially for a team like Liverpool, like the high intensity. And I don't know about you, but like watching Liverpool, there's not such a demanding press as there was in other years. They're a lot of them are very passive in the game at the moment.
I think as well. I saw that stat you saw the other day that you're on about. I think obviously Shearer at the time of recording this morning, he's called for the international break in March to be scrapped, hasn't he? And called for because he said it will ultimately impact the Euros because these players, when was the last time they got the long break last, spring, whenever it was due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but it was hardly a summer break that they're used to where they can jet off on holiday. It was, but the Liverpool one, it's a strange one. Like you say, the press just isn't there. And I think the intensity, because it's been the same group of players now for 3 years. When we won the Champions League, even the Kiev season, we only strengthened in Fabinho, Keita came, Alisson, and then that's the year after we won the European Cup and had the 97-point season. We didn't. I think we signed Van der Berg and someone, I can't remember who we signed. Sanderberg and Adrian. So it's like we're not making first team improvements really. They're all like squad players at best. And then obviously last summer you bring in Jota, and Thiago, but Thiago's hardly played this season really. Do you know what I mean? He's played like 7 or 8 games now. He's injured for large parts. So it's literally been the same core group of players. And no matter how good they are, fatigue is going to kick in. And like you say, especially the last 6 games at Anfield, the press has been non-existent. We used to suffocate teams, and that's why Anfield was a fortress. And I don't know if part of that is, the fans, the fear factor. But I mean, you've got teams like Burnley who've not won at Anfield in like 58, 60 years, I think it was. You've got City who haven't won there in 20 years. It's no coincidence that all these teams are winning at Anfield now for the first time, because we're just giving points away at this point. And like you say, like teams are just bypassing the press, and I don't know if that's because it's different midfield combinations or, lack of intensity. But I think Harrison Reed said it yesterday. Fulham just wanted it more, and I think that sums up Liverpool at the moment. There doesn't seem to be that desire or that hunger, and I don't think that's through players down tooling, but I think it is literally just they are burnt out and they've got nothing more to give.
Yeah, since like Alisson and the signings of Alisson, like Fabinho, you've not really had like a big marquee signing, really, have you, since then? So
I mean, obviously the Thiago one last summer,
Thiago,
and maybe Jota to an extent, but they haven't, like even Thiago, I don't think he's been given a fair crack at the whip. He's playing with different midfield partners every week. He was brought in to play with Henderson and Fabinho, and maybe Wijnaldum on the odd chance. But he's playing with James Milner. He's playing with Curtis Jones, who's a fantastic player, but like this isn't the midfield that he was promised.
Yeah.
So I think it's so hard to judge him because he's playing in different roles, he's doing different jobs. He hasn't had it's like with anything. If you don't let something settle, how's it gonna, do well and excel?
So will you say there's kind of a big summer ahead then for Liverpool?
Oh, a massive summer. I think, on and off the pitch, because if Klopp obviously needs to go to the board and say, I need to do this. The board obviously believe he's the right man to do so, which obviously he is. But if he isn't given the backing, what's the point in him being here? Because he cried all through January for a centre half, and it took a Joel Matip injury on the 30th of January for us to go and get a mid-table championship centre half and a bottom of the table Bundesliga centre half who lost like 19 league games in a row. Like, I'm not saying they're bad players, but this is Liverpool. We're the reigning league champions. We need players who are going to come in, and obviously no one's going to come in and do the role of Van Dijk, but you can have someone who's adequate enough to, step in as like a sensible, maybe third choice for next season, or, actually do a job. He's got Premier League experience. I mean, Ben Davies, he hasn't played as of yet. He hasn't had a kick. And I think Klopp came out the other day and said that he's, he needs time. Well, if he needs time, why was he brought in January as this kind of emergency centre half? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do feel sorry for him because, Klopp that is, because like, he's worked so well on a shoestring budget. Obviously, he's a big signings, but they've come through like, he sacrificed Coutinho, he got Van Dijk. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of been, he's had to give to receive. And now, obviously, I can't see Liverpool selling anyone massive in the summer. I mean, obviously, Wijnaldum will go, but you're not going to get a fee for him. Chamberlain, maybe, I think will go. I mean, potentially Naby Keita, but I would be very surprised. But you're not exactly going to recoup, millions and millions for them all, are you? Maybe looking at 50 million between the two of them. So I think he needs backing, and if he doesn't get that, I do worry, because I think Klopp's ability to manage has kind of hid FSG's failings. They haven't backed him, so I think they've been lucky because.
I was just going to say, just on your point of like the fresh squad, I think that's massively important if you want to challenge in it, because it's like if Klopp's built this brilliant team, especially up front, Mane, Firmino, and Salah in particular, and until the start of the season with Jota, they've had no competition properly. So it was okay for the first couple of seasons when they were massively on fire and they were the new, fresh team, exciting team. But when they've got to the seasons where a bit of mental fatigue kind of kicks in, you need the lads on your tails who are threatening to take your spot. And at the start of the season, Jota was that lad who was threatening to take any of the front three spots. And then you could see at that point when Jota was in the side, you were flying up the table, and you were, as you say, you were top at Christmas. And I'm not just saying just because Jota's got injured, Jesus fell off, because there's obviously a lot of reasons for that. But as soon as Jota's got injured, the front three have got no competition again. Like you got Shaqiri, Origi, but they're not quality of Salah, Mane, and Firmino, are they? So they've had no competition, so their places are safe in the team. So you've seen kind of a drop in performance, maybe not from Salah as much, but it's particularly Mane and Firmino.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with that. I mean, you talk about obviously like having like Origi as maybe fourth choice, but I mean, if you're Salah, Mane, or Firmino, you know that no matter what he does, he's not going to start ahead of you the following week, and that is a massive part of it, I think, as well. Because you look at the likes of City, you've got Aguero. Obviously, okay, he's not what he was, but you've got Jesus, you've got Sterling, you've got Torres. You've got all these. Last couple of seasons ago, you had Sane as well. You've got Bernardo Silva thrown into that mix. You've got all these world class players who are edging to play football games, and if one doesn't perform, they're going to be out, bench for the following week. And I think that's been Liverpool's one of the biggest problems, because we just don't have the depth of City, who can rotate, and that plays into the fatigue element, because you're relying on that core group. Like, I would love to see the percentage of minutes that the likes of the two centre halves, Wijnaldum, Henderson, Salah, and Mane have played over the last 3 or 4 years, because I guarantee it's probably in the 85 pluses.
I saw some stat the other day about is it only Gini Wijnaldum, Curtis Jones, and is it Andy Robertson that's not missed like a game for injury? That is crazy, man. That is crazy. Talk about Jurgen Klopp. You've just kind of mentioned him. What do you kind of make about the situation surrounding him? Is there a risk he could go? Or is he just going to kind of take this on as like a new challenge to rebuild the team?
I mean, I know a lot of people are drawing comparisons to his Dortmund days, and how they peaked. Obviously, he implemented this, turned Dortmund into this like European machine in a sense. They got to Champions League final, they won back-to-back league titles, they won domestic cups. Obviously, there was a drop-off there in his final season, which would have been 14-15. They were obviously flirting with relegation for a while. And then obviously I think he brought them back up to the Europa League places. But I know at the time when Klopp left, I think he felt that he'd taken that Dortmund team to as far as he could. Do you know what I mean? Like the project was done. He wasn't going to be able to take them back up to the heights that they'd reached in previous years. So I do worry in a sense that if he doesn't get the backing, it's kind of, I think that we need Klopp more than Klopp needs us, because he is arguably first or second best manager in the world. So it's like he can put his CV on any desk and you'd get a job. You know what I mean? As I said earlier, I think Klopp's managerial, what he's done at Liverpool, it hides kind of the failings of FSG and them as owners. So I think if you got someone else who wasn't this tactician of a manager, this mastermind of a manager, I think it would be, I think the owners would be highlighted a lot more. But I think it's gone on because we have won, the Premier League. We've got the two European Cup finals. It's swept under the carpet, so to say. Like I say, I fear if he's not backed, he could potentially work. I mean, his contract's up in 2024. That's 3 seasons, isn't it? I can't see him going this summer, but I mean, if he doesn't get back, then we have another season next season, like this season, missing out on top 4 or whatever.
I can't see it. Honestly, I can't see it. We said in our video previously that we just did on Liverpool, this was before Fulham as well, so this is before it kind of got even worse, that I think it's very easy to just jump on the immediate, like, oh, Liverpool is shit, the Klopp needs to be blamed, his fault, etc., etc. But if Virgil van Dijk, Gomez were to come back next season for a full season, Jota, these sort of players, Fabinho back in midfield, Henderson back in midfield, and you have another similar season like this, that's when proper serious questions need to be asked.
Oh yeah,
but Again, I completely take your point. It's like Klopp has took the side that you've said has had to kind of like balance his kind of budget, and he's got to a European final. He's won another European Cup, and he's won a Premier League. Like he's done wonders with this squad. And I understand the argument that they have spent money, but like you say, they've had to balance it out with sales too.
Yeah.
And he's took this team to heights that like a lot of people didn't think they would. I just do not see another man in world football that is more suited enough to turn this around for Liverpool.
Maybe, yeah.
But he needs the backing of the board at the end of the day, doesn't he?
Well, that's what I mean. And fundamentally, I don't think he's asking to go out and spend 80 million on a centre half. But I think there is a bit of balance there. He does need an adequate centre half. Because whoever we sign in the summer isn't probably going to play next season unless we have freakish injuries again. I mean, I'd imagine that Matip probably leaves, so you're probably looking for a third and fourth choice. Yeah. Whether Fabinho's fourth choice, and you're just bringing another body. But it's like you said, there's no one more suited, and there's no one. I don't think there's anyone else who could have done this project that Klopp's done over the past 5 or 6 years, because it has just been absolutely mental. And I think, like you say, there's always going to be a drop off. And I think, like I said to you earlier, as soon as you lose the centre halves, I think, regardless of where we were at the time, I think a part of you thinks, it's going to be incredibly hard to retain the league with 3/4 of the season left. But I mean, I think there's a bit of middle ground to it, because you can have as many injuries as you want in the world, but I don't think for any team in the league, I don't think 6 straight home defeats are acceptable. No. I just don't. You know what I mean? So there is a bit of you gotta like, what's the word? Balance it.
And I agree. And just kind of to wrap this up, with every passing game, Champions League qualifications looking more and more unlikely. But I'd say I've put it down here. Is it a must? But I mean, it looks like more than likely the only way you're going to qualify at this moment in time with the form you're on is through the Champions League, and you've done it in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a must massively. I just think because if you can turn this crisis season, what it's been labelled at the minute, and you get top 4, I don't think, well, not top 4, but if you get Champions League football out of it, I don't think that's a horrendous season.
Massive, yeah, it's massive though.
If you finish 7th and you get top 4, or you get Champions League one way or another, I think it's an all right season. You're not missing out on any top players because you've got the attraction of Champions League football. But I just think it puts us back a year or two if you miss out, because it's okay. I think Klopp said the other day that anyone who he's going to sign wouldn't be dependent on Champions League football, as in, if they're only here for Champions League football, I don't want them. And if they want to leave because we're not in Champions League, I don't want them. So it's one of them. But I mean, if you are looking at an Mbappe or a Haaland or someone of that calibre, you can't tell me they're going to be wanting to play Europa League football when they're probably going to have every
conference football.
Yeah, or whatever it is, whatever they introduce next year. For me, it's a must, because I just think in terms of, I don't think we will lose our momentum massively, but I think if you have to gruel then with the likes of Europa League or the Europa Conference League, if you have to balance that with trying to get top 4, I just think it's an impossible task. It took, I think, like 1 in 6 years we played Champions League football, under the likes of, Rodgers. From like 2010 to 2016, we got in there, we qualified once. It's so hard to get out when you're constantly playing Thursday, Sunday. So I just think massively, I think Liverpool needs to get it one way or another. And obviously it does look more and more likely that it will be through the Champions League, which I think will be an incredibly tough ask. Incredibly tough.
Well, we'll wrap this up. Thank you for joining me. This has been good. It's nice to hear a perspective that's not someone that's completely biased against your club. Thank you again for Kiefer for doing that for us. We'll leave all these links below. So go and check him out on Twitter. He does some brilliant stuff. But yeah, the situation at Liverpool is kind of baffling at the moment in time. What would you put it down to?
I mean, if I had to pick it down for something, something's wrong. I mean, if Liverpool can't find a situation why it's going wrong, then I'm not going to randomly pick one out, am I? And I don't sound like a muppet then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As in, if Liverpool realistically can't win a game at Anfield, and they haven't lost a game in 3 years, then surely Thiago's the problem.
Some Thiago propaganda.
No, I mean, end of the day, I feel like every time the Fulham game, Fulham looked a better side, and Fulham looked like they deserved to win as well, which is still crazy.
But you look at that starting lineup for Liverpool.
Well, as you said, it started like before it started. I mean, there's 7 changes. I thought, why?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was
underestimating
Salah, in the front three. Who else was in the front three? It was virtually no one. It was Salah,
He played-
Jota, who'd just come back from injury, and who else was it? Shaqiri. And then there was Minamino, Keita.
Yeah, Kate was a 10. That's coming from.
Baffling. But and then the back line was Nat Phillips and
Reece Williams.
Crazy, absolutely crazy. That is not a Liverpool back. That's not a top 4 back line. Let alone a title winning back line.
I know.
But yeah, I mean, we said it on our last video. So if you want to go and kind of have an in-depth look at what we thought was going wrong for Liverpool, that was before the Fulham game.
If you want. Yeah, I don't
mind. That was before the Fulham game. So go and check that out. Where we kind of just said that, in summary, we'll have to wait until next season when everyone's back who have been injured, the likes of Van Dijk, to see if they have a similar season like
Liverpool
this.
playing tonight as well.
They've got Red Bull. So
whenever
this goes out,
it could be Liverpool out the Champions League as well. So.
But they've got a 2-0 lead on Red Bull Leipzig, and I think, speaking of Kiefer, he said that's obviously at the moment the more likely way Liverpool get into the Champions League at this moment in time.
Could be Dortmund, Liverpool Champions League. Whoever wins gets Champions League final, can it?
Yeah, could be.
So
could be.
Soon, it? So.
Moving on to someone who's definitely not in bad form at the moment, and I feel like we're a bit of a jinx because we made a video on Jose Mourinho and Tottenham Hotspur about how bad they were.
We did.
And especially Gareth Bale. And in the last couple of weeks, wow, he has just exploded back onto the scene, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how that's really happened. I bought Son into my fantasy team, and then Gareth Bale's turned into Prime Bale again. So we always knew he had it though. It's not as if it's like a random player. Is it like a Harry Winks and suddenly turned into like Cruyff? It's Gareth Bale.
We did say, in fairness to us, that he wasn't given much chance by Mourinho at the start, was he?
No, I mean you get like half an hour in the last second half while they're playing Europa League and does well in Europa League and then doesn't really play that much. But like I said, at the end of the day, it's Gareth Bale. You kind of not really expect it, but you would see that coming from him. So the Spurs are so inconsistent. It's weird. I mean, they'll win like 3 in a row, and then won't win for 5 games, and then be like everyone like, why is Mourinho's done the job? And then you're like, okay, they've beaten that team 4-0. Have they done that? They're really done fair play. It just doesn't make any sense. The Premier League doesn't make sense at the moment. It's not. No one knows what's going on. I don't know what's going on. Chelsea now turning to Barcelona as well.
They've not beaten brilliant teams, but they've beaten the teams that we said in the past have slipped them up, kind of like the Crystal Palaces, the Brighton. You know what I mean, the ones that they've kind of slipped up in the past, the winning.
Yeah.
Could they make a late run for the Champions League?
No.
I
think there's better teams above. I mean, like I said, just Chelsea. And Chelsea haven't lost on a 2-show yet in the league. I don't think so. That's one thing to go off anyway. I mean, Man United are now clear. Leicester managed to win the game again, which is fair play.
Yeah.
So there's not really catching, and West Ham as well, doing really well still somehow.
Yeah, they kind of went on such a bad run that they're not going to be back there. But kind of Bale, Kane, and Son forming quite a nice partnership.
It'd be good to see anyway. Someone else rather than Kane and Son scoring. It's like the Kane
he's only on loan until the end of this campaign, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Can you see him?
Them
taking on his kind of weight.
I don't see him playing for Real Madrid again. I'll say that.
Well, yeah.
So he's going to leave Real Madrid. It's just too rich club, and the most likely suit I think at the moment is going to be Gareth Bale. Spurs for Gareth Bale, but yeah, I think we'll see. We'll see you go for now, and that's mainly because of the fact that when hopefully fans will be back at Spurs or in football in general, they'll be able to play, and that will hopefully bring some motivation towards the players as well, because obviously there's such a big name. Like we said in the Spurs video, like when he came to the club, all the fans outside, like Spurs training ground, because that's how big of a player Gareth Bale is. As I said, it's not surprising that Gareth Bale is suddenly now performing, because he's Gareth Bale for Christ's sake, isn't he? So that's why it was really surprising to see how it kind of was how bad he performed. He wasn't getting much chances really at all. And the same, speaking about Dele Alli as well, he's not really doing very well either, is he? Well, we made that. Well, like if you want to check our Spurs video out, you can do. But like two main players we said who in the problem for Spurs this year have been Dele Alli and Gareth Bale, and one of them now start performing. It could be Dele Alli performing soon as well. He's starting to get back into the team, isn't he, Dele Alli? So maybe Jose Mourinho's listened to our video. Yeah. And gone right. But your ideas up. Right. Yeah. Spurs have got to kind of completely rely on the Europa League now, haven't they? To get. Well, if we're looking at the way we talked about, I think we do, yeah. They don't really like losing in Europa League anyway. You've got them and Arsenal, who are kind of the
the main. Obviously, United are in it, but United are going to most likely get Champions League. So
You got a tough game as well, Man United. AC Milan aren't easy either, so it could be an interesting.
So Tottenham and Arsenal. Am I missing anyone out? Leicester
lost to
Leicester lost to Slavia Prague, didn't they? So it's Tottenham and Arsenal who are kind of prioritising that competition at the moment if they want any sort of chance of Champions League football.
We forgot about Arsenal as well. I've not even really talked about Arsenal in any videos because
they're just not relevant at the moment in time, are they? They enjoy a good period, and then they drew with Burnley again at the weekend, didn't they? So it's just they have a few decent results, and then they just have one that completely throws away any sort of hard work they've done. At the moment in time, but I don't know kind of what the situation is there at the moment. In terms of Mourinho at Tottenham, though, how will it just be the Europa League's kind of success that he's judged on this season in terms of if he can get him to the Champions League?
It looks like it to me. I mean, it all depends where he finishes at the end of the season. He could finish 5th or 6th at this rate, but at the end of the day, he's going to get European football no matter what.
Yeah.
Which Liverpool might not get at this rate, which is quite funny to me. Liverpool are 8th, which I said in a previous video as a joke. Liverpool might even finish 8th this season. We just laughed, and at the moment they're 8th. So it could be interesting to see if that's the case at the end of the season.
Because we keep saying, don't we? Oh, Liverpool go on a run, but then they've played in the last couple of weeks some very, very easy teams that you think you should beat.
Bottom half. We'll say that,
Burnley, Brighton, and Fulham.
Fulham played off the park.
All at home.
Yeah.
And they only lost to Sheffield United because of 2 howlers. Beat Sheffield United to 2. And Leipzig, to be fair, give them 2 goals in the Champions League. So, but it's going to be kind of an interesting top 4 race as it comes closer and closer. We've got 10 games left now, haven't we? 30 points to play for.
There we go.
So it's going to be kind of an interesting race to finish, but you don't think Tottenham anywhere near?
I wouldn't say anywhere near, but I don't say they get top 4. I think that's too far away from now.
Fair enough. Anyway, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you go and check out all the previous stuff we've done. Check out all the socials as usual. A big thank you to
Football Shirts 101
and Kiefer for helping us with this podcast. Enjoy the football this week, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.